Welcome once again. This is the Grand Prix Project podcast. This is a F1 episode reviewing the
Emiliano Romagna Grand Prix.
okay, which is in
I'm sure
Italy.
which is in Italy. Yeah,
The
I'm sure
Italian
that's
city is
that's how
Monza.
that's how they pronounce it. Officially the Italian Grand Prix will be Monza.
Monza.
Yeah,
All right.
Emilia Romagna Grand Prix. Yeah.
Okay. Good. Tongue twisted here, but we got it. Piastri Stomps don't have a pole. Lando struggles to fourth. Like, hey, what's going on in what's the dynamics? What's going on with do you see Piastri as the guy in the McLaren team now?
No, I don't think so. I still think it's relatively close between the two of them. And I think where Lando's problem lies is not it's not race pace. It's his one lap qualifying. That seems to be the problem that he needs to work on. Because once he gets into the race, he's shown that he has the pace to either match or even beat Piastri. So I don't think that's the case of saying Piastri is the man right now. Is he in a good vein of form? Absolutely. And based on that, people would want to say, yeah, he's the man. But I still think it's too early. It's 7 races out of what, 24? So we have another 17 races to go. I still think, yeah, it's too early to make that call. But we can agree that in terms of who's in the best form right now, it's Oscar. Because, go back to our last episode from, what was the last race? Miami, where I mentioned, or it was born before that, where I mentioned that what Landon needs is he just needs a clean weekend. And I think if he can put a clean weekend together, that will kind of like help boost his confidence or whatever it is again. But right now, his struggles is definitely in qualifying.
This is
Because
the issue with that, right? Needing a clean weekend. We've been saying that for a couple races now, right? No, we're a quarter of the season, just over a quarter, as we just mentioned. This Grand Prix in the season. So I could see that being said, just based on what I've seen, right? I could see that being said until the halfway point, and all of a sudden we're saying that at the 3/4 way point, and
no, I don't think we'll say that up to that point. But the thing that's saving Lando right now is, even with his poor qualifying form, the gap to his teammate is not unsurmountable. It's not something that he cannot claw back within maybe 2 or 3 races.
considering he
So
figures out.
yeah, so he's still winning. He's still in the fight. He's not dropped out. He's not lost or anything like that. He's still consistently. I mean, has he missed the podium in any race this year? I don't believe. Where did he miss the podium? Um, was it Jeddah? Because Charles finished on the podium in Jeddah. No, it wasn't. No, Max didn't finish on the podium in Jeddah. Oh God, I need to remember. But either way, Lando is still consistently. He's putting the McLaren on the podium, which is good. So if his teammate is winning the races and he's on the podium, it lessens the points gap to some extent.
But consistently over a season, you lose a championship.
Yes, which is why he's gonna have to regain his form in qualifying. And
So
if he fixes that, like I said, in the race, he's still relatively quick in the race, consistent pace throughout every single race so far. He just hasn't been able to put together. Again, his cleanest weekend was Australia. He had no issues in Australia. Qualified on pole, drove a clean race, and you felt like he was going to build on that, and then everything started to fall apart in China.
let me ask you this, right? We already know that one of the hardest issues to fix, because he's in a good car, as we already know, right?
Mm-hmm.
So when you're in a good car that's fast, or for any car, as a matter of fact, the hardest thing to overcome, it, if you got an issue, is is that one lap pace.
I I
Yeah,
I disagree. I disagree with that. I
why?
disagree with that because again, the issue he could be having over the one lap, it could be tire related, it could be a balance issue or something. These are things that can be fixed. It's not like he doesn't have one lap pace. He has the one lap pace. He just needs to get the car on that one lap. Because if you look, all right, if you look at his qualifying, every single session he's fine up until the final runs in Q3.
Are we feeling
That's
so? Basically, the
that.
same thing that Lewis went through at Mercedes to the last.
Mm,
Yeah, a
yeah,
lot of time he went through, and he said when it comes down to it, the car just is just a totally
yeah.
different.
Okay. Yeah. So probably his final 2 years at
Yeah,
Mercedes
yeah,
or the
it's final
final
2 years
year.
I'm talking about.
Yeah,
Because
that
the
happened.
reason the
But
reason why I alluded to the fact that the one lap thing is probably more difficult to fix. I get it. You're saying it's there about is qualifying top four. It's not terrible, but
mhm.
it's just like what you mentioned. You said it that his issue is qualifying, right? So the reason why I said qualifying is probably one of the most difficult to fix, whatever may be the cause, is that we've seen it. We've seen where it's like drivers may struggle in qualifying and then they're just rapid in the race.
Well, but in that case, it depends on the car in question because if you have a good car is a good car, qualifying or in the race.
Which the
So you
McLaren,
expect, which is McLaren is, so you expect him to, be good in qualifying. So whatever the issue is he's having, it could be a simple case of I don't maybe just the pressure of having Oscar, knowing Oscar is there, knowing that he has to be absolutely perfect. Because if he's not, he's going to get all qualified by either Max, Oscar, or even George.
which is
And
Mac.
maybe that pressure that in itself is playing in the back of his mind. I don't know. I'm just assuming here. But whatever the issue is, it's just that's the only thing he needs to clean up. And he still has a lot of time. He's only what? Um 13 points behind in the championship. He
Yeah,
still has a lot of time available. And what we do know, we've seen in Formula One, there's going to be a bad patch for somewhere for Oscar. Oscar's going to have his moments where he's having difficulties as well. The question now is how does Oscar deal with these moments? So Lando just needs to just kind of like take a deep breath and if in some ways kind of like retrace his step
yeah,
to what he did well in Australia and just try and replicate that. Because, like I said, the pace is there in him. So, you know, if he gets that fine, if he gets that sorted, then he'll be all right.
yeah, man.
Be all right, biscuit.
Yeah, I just think whatever it is, right? So he had one clean weekend and then he's at six that is not so great, right?
Hmm.
Man, that's a lot of races.
Yeah, and again, like I said, you'd assume within within those 6 races, Oscar's won what 4, right? You'd
Yeah.
have thought that he'd have had a much bigger gap. He
Yeah.
doesn't. Oscar's won the last what? Prior to yesterday, won the last
Three.
4 races.
Oh,
I think
last
four,
four. No, last three.
last 4.
He did three in a row. Was it three in a row that he did? Yeah,
He
three in a row.
won.
That's when he broke the record.
He won Jeddah after Max won in Japan. What was after Japan? God, let me just check because I can't remember all of this
Yeah, he
stuff
did
off
three in a
off
row
the top.
because he was the first driver since
Senna,
Hakkinen. No, since Hakkinen.
Akinen. So
He's the-
he won. He won Bahrain. Yeah, he won Bahrain, Jeddah, and Miami.
yeah,
He also won Australia, China. So those are his 4 wins.
yeah,
Yeah, you'd have thought he'd have built up a bigger lead. So whilst it looks daunting for Lando, it's still pretty much not as bad as how it could have been for him
Yeah,
because the points gap is it's not huge. It's only 13 points. You're talking about that's him winning the next two races and Oscar finishing third in those two races. That's 20 points he's gained over Oscar, immediately 7 points ahead of him again. So I think it becomes a worry. Is it a worry now? Yes. To what extent? Maybe 20%. It becomes a more bigger percentage if we get to the halfway point of the season.
that's what I was
And
just.
it's the same thing happening, and he's not winning races and Oscar is winning races, then you pretty much know, yeah, you're not
Gonna say if he
you're
goes to
not
the halfway mark, not figuring this out, right?
yeah.
Whatever his little niggling issues are, he's gonna start looking a
And
bit.
it's and when you consider that the Red Bull is now starting to look a much better package.
Actually, we'll get to that because that's one of
Yeah.
the things that we have that we need to discuss.
Yeah.
Right, that's one of the things that we need to
So
discuss.
so the qualifying was brilliant from Oscar because again he delivered when it matters. And we all thought Max was gonna steal it. And what we realized with the circuit as well, because they probably brought the softest compound of tires in the range. The was it C4, 5, and 6, which are the three softest compounds,
Yeah,
right? And we saw that there was a mixed. All the cars in the top 10 set their times on different tires.
yeah.
Well, was it seven? Three out of the seven cars set the times on different tires.
Mm-hmm.
The Mercedes, the two Aston Martins did use mediums in Q3, and George on mediums out qualified Lando, which when you saw Lando's lap when Piastri was up a tenth and a half at the end of sector two, Lando was almost 3 tenths down, and I was like, yeah, it's not coming together. And then you thought, okay, he had secured a third position because you didn't really think George was going to qualify him on the medium tires, and boom, up pops George, and he's off the well, he's still on the second row, but he's made his job a bit more difficult because he's behind the Mercedes, where naturally he'd want to probably be behind Max on the grid or something like that, which gives him a better chance. But yeah, hats off to Oscar.
Yeah,
Did his thing again.
yep.
Delivered another excellent pole. The two Aston Martins had some upgrades this over the weekend. I heard it was a large package. Lance, um, Lance, and they qualified. Where they qualified? Let me tell you where they qualified. Um, they qualified fifth and eighth. Alonso in fifth. Stroll in eighth again with that's basically sandwiched the two Williams of Sainz and Albon.
Albon, yeah.
Hajar again in the Q3 P9 and Gasly P10. The two Ferraris, boy, I genuinely don't know what's going on there when it comes to their qualifying, because again we've seen what happened in Miami where they set the best times they set the time on used tires, then went out on brand new tires, and there was no improvement on the brand new tires. So what's going on there? They've got it because it's like there seems to, but we'll discuss the whole Ferrari thing later on because I've got questions.
All right, then yeah. So we started out on the Piastri thing. I said shout out to Piastri. Keep doing this thing.
Mm-hmm.
Showing a lot of consistency. And growth actually
Yep.
in everything in his driving. Yeah, he's doing a great job. Um,
Mm-hmm.
Max. So Max goes on to win his second race of the season, right? After hey man, that move was brilliant.
After what we know is basically a Max move.
Yeah, man.
Max pretty much kind of like, look, he knew he had to lead the first lap because that his race depended on that. I think if he hadn't done that, he would have probably struggled to pass the McLaren. Even though if you look on his pace, I think the Red Bull were genuinely quicker than the McLaren this weekend in the race stream. It just looked. It doesn't. I mean, there was once after was it like 5, 6, 7 laps, and you saw the leader over 1.5 seconds. I thought to myself, well, okay, maybe the McLaren are just taking the time, bringing the tires in slowly, and now they're going to start to chip away at the time. But it never transpired, and Max didn't look like he was ever going to be put under pressure by either McLaren. He just like
with
you
with
know.
that, when I'm looking at it, the reason why I beg to differ on that, right? Unless you got like a RB19, right?
Hmm.
Whereas no matter what is behind, it's just gonna drive up and signal maneuver and go.
Hmm.
Like in this time, it's like your best get if you're out in front, even on McLaren, right? And if the Red Bull gets out in front of you, it could change everything about that race, right? And it could look, as you say, probably the Red Bull, based on what happened, the Red Bull looks faster to you. And if Piastri, if Max didn't make that move, all of a sudden the McLaren stretches its legs up the road, leave the Red Bull. See, you know what we're talking about? Like when it comes on, a lot of time his track position is king, right? And
Yeah, which is why I said it was important for Max to lead the
yeah,
race
because I think
because
if Oscar had maintained first, I think he would have galloped.
that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
That's why I said it was important for Max to lead the race. That's why he went for that move. He knew how important it was to lead the race because if he found himself behind Oscar, he pretty much knew it was going to be a struggle to pass the McLaren.
No,
Because
I was referring to when you said you think the Red Bull would
yeah,
pick a car.
yeah, I think, and this is why I say that because when Oscar pitted, right? And Lando moved up into second place after he had passed George, and he moved up into second. By the way, the move on Lando put on George was a nice move where he did
Yeah.
it. So
Seems like he's
he
listening.
start
He's listening
he's
to what
starting,
we said.
yeah. He heard the criticism, and now he's starting to get a bit ballsy,
Yep.
and
As you
kudos to
should.
him,
As you
kudos to him for doing that. But when Oscar when he got up behind Max, he was about 9 seconds, I believe it was. And you thought, okay, let's see the McLaren's pace now. Let's see them unleash that pace and see how quickly Lando can eat into that time. He didn't. The gap remained relatively around the same 9 second mark. He didn't have any pace to claw back from Max. And Max, at that point in time, you didn't think Max was pushing his tires that hard.
So you
You
wouldn't
felt like he was managing his
Lando
pace.
use up
So
tires
you could,
behind
huh?
George? You don't think Lando use up tires behind George?
Uh, Not to the extent that it would, because the McLaren is extremely good on its tires. So it's not to the extent that it would cost them that much performance. Because we've seen it before. If you look at Miami, how much tire did he use up to get past Max? But once he got past Max, he drove away from him, and at the same time, he
True.
was eating into Oscar's gap. So that wasn't the case this weekend. I just feel like on pure race pit this weekend, the Red Bull was probably the quicker car. Definitely
So to
the
say
quicker
that,
one.
to say that, right? So are you also saying that he probably could have caught Piastri on the road and beat him on race pace?
Who?
Max.
That's what I'm saying. All right, this might contradict my original point, but when you're following, it's more difficult
Yeah.
because because if the cars are evenly matched pace wise, right, the delta you would need to overtake, I believe, what Ant was saying, it was something like maybe 7 tenths to a second
Yeah.
per lap in delta. You would need to overtake around that track because you saw what happened with the DRS straight. So, and the McLaren likes clean here. If the McLaren is out in front, it's pretty much lethal. So which is why I go back to my original point that Max knew his race relied on him leading the first lap.
Yeah,
And and that's why he went hell for leather. It's either win or bust.
yeah,
You know what I mean? What's that? Murray Walker used to say, you can't, what's that? You can't win a race at the first corner, but you can lose it, which
lose it.
I said that's not really true because you can win it at the first corner as well. And that's exactly what Max did. He won the race at the first corner. And, and hats off to him
Yeah,
because, he's up for this championship fight. And the McLaren guys are going to have to realize that, we're up against a 4-time champion. We're up against a guy basically where his entire team is going to be pushing behind him. They're not concerned about the Constructors' Championship anymore. So Yuki's basically kind of like, it is what it is. He's just there. They don't care about that. They want the Drivers' Championship. And they're going to do everything in their power to give Max the best opportunity possible because they had an upgrade package this weekend as well. You know what I mean? So, and that upgrade package looks like it brought the car back into a favorable position for Max.
yeah.
Because what you notice is in practice sessions, they seem to be nowhere. But by come qualifying, FP3 qualifying, they've managed to fine tune it and get it to where they needed to, and now it starts to work. So, you know,
I'm glad that you
Max
went
did.
there because yesterday in the spaces I did ask the question. Right?
What's that?
Is McLaren, because as we said, it's safe to say that McLaren should have won 6 out of 7, or McLaren should have been 7 out of 7.
Mm, yeah, you could say that. You could say that, but then again, the brilliance of Max is there. So it was never going to be never was going to be an easy thing for them to deliver. But yeah, you could say they should have won all 7
Because the
races.
reason why I'm asking that, from what I'm seeing, I think McLaren is lingering around to get Red Bull to get Max back in the game.
Again, but here's the problem with that. Lingering around in what sense? Because it's not like they have 2 competitive drivers, so it's very likely that they were going to take points off each other.
Um, yeah,
Yeah.
because
The only way, if one driver was winning, then majority of the points would be going to that driver. So then Max would have a bigger problem to deal with. But the
I
fact
meant
that
I meant
both drivers are
strategically.
competitive,
I meant strategically, right? The way I see it, McLaren should have been way more aggressive. In the way I see it, the way the McLarens are fast and McLarens are, and it's just Max.
mm-hmm.
If Max is leading a race and they're second and third, they have to be aggressive in strategy to have a use one of the cars to
Yeah,
hold Max at some point. They have to do something. They can't just do what Max is doing because they're leading the championship. They don't need to take. They don't need to say pull the trigger like yesterday. Um,
mm-hmm.
Yesterday, I think they got that whole strategy from that first stop for Piastri. I think it was a wrong call.
Yeah, it was definitely the wrong decision to make because once the gap to Max was what 2.5 seconds.
Yeah,
So as long as it's within that window, and if Max isn't pulling away at rate of knots, then you go as long as you possibly can because even then they're still quicker than everybody else behind them.
exactly.
And if Piastri had just carried on, we don't know. Maybe you know we could we could then see a sudden change in performance, and he started to eat back into that gap. But the fact that they pitted him so early pretty much gave Red Bull a free pass because Lando was already too far behind.
Yeah,
So combined, Lando was about what? Uh, say what? 10 seconds behind Max. The moment you move Piastri out the way, it was easy picking for Red Bull, and especially when you consider that they pitted Piastri back out into traffic.
Yeah,
That's the
some better
that's the
position.
that's the part that didn't really make any sense. Because I tell you where when he pitted, he came back out. He pitted from second on lap the end of lap 13, right? When he came back out on lap 14, he came back out in 12th. In 12th position, he came back out in lap in 12th position, just ahead of Charles, Russell, and Sainz, and Alonso, and Gasly, and so on. So you pretty much pitted him in traffic, where now he's gonna have to use up his tires to get through traffic, and you have Max just going leisurely at a pace, just doing the same amount of laps, which now for him creates a tire offset. So when he pits, so even if Piastri was ever to like fall within its pit window or surpass him in terms of the time, because I think the pit last time was something like 30 seconds.
Yeah,
And at one point, the gap, when Piastri finally made his way through past Lewis, I think Lewis was the last person he passed. Let me see where he went up to. Um,
because
he
Lewis was in
passed,
fourth at the time.
yeah, he passed Lewis. He passed Lewis on lap 26, 27. He passed Antonelli, and 28 he passed Hajar, right?
Yeah,
So by the time he got up to those positions, he talking about he had to pass the likes of Sonoda. He spent 3 laps behind Sonoda. Then he had to pass then he was behind Beerman, Colapinto. I think he spent no, pass those guys really quick.
there's a
So
caveat to that. Sonoda, that 3 laps is a bit. He wasn't. He took once he caught him, he passed him. He
yeah,
didn't.
he wasn't directly
He wasn't
behind him,
directly
but
behind him
he had to close that gap
to
down.
close that gap. But once he
It took him, yeah, it took him basically
three
3 laps to close.
close it,
One because he came back out on lap 14, so 15, 16, 17. So it took him 3 laps, and then he passed him on lap 18. But the point is, he used up a lot of his tires getting through to that position. So once he got back up into um where did he got up to? He got up to P4 on lap 28 before the VSC came up, and that's when Lando pitted and he jumped him. He had already ran through his tires, so the likelihood is it would have been a struggle for him to get to the end of the race on those tires. So was the plan then to pit him a second time? Because looking at what Red Bull were doing, Max was never going to do a two-stop.
yeah,
So they need to explain the logic behind saying pitting Oscar that early when all they had to do was just mirror what Max was doing.
yeah.
That's all
And
they had to
what I
do
thought,
because it was only Piastri now who could actually beat Max because Lando was too far behind. Lando was never going to close that 9-second gap to Max to win the race. So Piastri was your only bet, but you moved them out of the way. I think Max pitted on lap um, Max pitted under the VSC, I believe. Yeah. Max pitted on lap 29 or 20 or 30, I believe it was, under the VSC. And when you consider that Piastri pitted on end of lap 13, so there's basically what's that? 15 lap tire offset. So even if the VSC hadn't come out at that point in time, Max Max already had a pit stop over Piastri.
yeah, and the fact that, and this is why when it happened, I'm like, are they missing a trick here? What are they doing? Because they know, the old paddock knows, the old F1 sphere knows that their car is the best with tire management, right?
Mm-hmm.
So when I'm looking at, I'm like, okay, he's 2 points, probably just backing off not to. Just follow Max. Like, you have no reason to pit Piastri before Max in that situation. Because if you go back to when Red Bull was winning
Mm-hmm.
and Max they just go long because
Yeah, because
we're the
when
one
you
with
have
the
the
advantage.
fastest car,
Yeah,
yeah, when you have
go.
the
I'm gonna
fastest
follow
car,
you.
there's no such thing as a bad strategy when you have the fastest car. There's no strategy that you can look at and say that's a terrible one if you have the fastest car on the grid. And whilst they were pretty much an equal match for each other this weekend, and I still somewhat say Red Bull had the slight advantage. That was a dumb decision from them to make. It
Well,
shouldn't. And
McLaren,
again, it
that
left
was a
it,
bad
it
strategy. It was a very fast car.
yeah, and it showed the same thing we've talked about before, that McLaren aren't used to winning. They've not won since, let's if you go championship, they haven't won. We all know they haven't won the championships. They didn't win a champion prior to last. They didn't win a championship since 2008. So they've probably forgotten how to win, right? And it shows up in the decision they make. Even Jacques Villeneuve said it post race that he doesn't understand what they did. And again, it shows that in critical moments, they're still making silly decisions. Whereby Red Bull, they know what to do at the right point in time.
And you had mentioned it yesterday in the spaces, and I'm still going to stick to my thoughts on that, right? Whilst they haven't won a championship prior to last year, since 2008, right? Well, drivers' champion, because they won a drivers' championship 2008, right? I'm still looking at yesterday. It wasn't one of those ones where you had to really. It wasn't really a lot of data number crunching type of situation where like you're like this, like it was just a simple, straightforward. We're leading the championship. We've got a great car. We're going to follow him. As long as Oscar doesn't come on the radio and say, my tires are falling off a cliff. You speak to your driver, Oscar, are you feeling in this situation? Yeah, my tires are good. I think I still got some pace. Okay, follow him. If he pits, you go one ahead, right? We're not going to pit before them. Right? Or worst case scenario, if he pits, you follow him into the pits. Let's see if they mess up on a pit stop and we jump them there. But not pitting him before was never the right thing to do.
But I just thought about it. Did they react to Charles and George? Is that the reason why they pit him? Because if you look, when they pit him, if I'm not again, let me just check the lap by lap thing. He came back out. When he came back out on lap 14, he came back out ahead of Charles and George. And remember when Charles pitted first. Charles pitted on at the end of lap 9, and Charles was in P9 when he pitted.
Mm-hmm.
So did they react? Did they see the lap times that Charles was doing and reacted to that? Because if that's the case, that's even dumber than.
It doesn't matter what Lewis, Charles. It doesn't matter
what. That's what I'm saying.
Red Bull. You focus on Max Verstappen, even if whatever Charles or George did and it won them the race. As long as you're not beaten by that Red Bull, that's what your focus should be.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I'm
just focus on teams that are not even a championship and lose the championship.
Yeah, and that's what Red Bull's not going to do. Red Bull's not going to. Red Bull wouldn't have made that mistake.
Yeah, if no matter what, if the strategy means that at the end I finish 9th and Max finishes 10th, I'm okay with that. As long as you're not beaten by him, right? Yeah. You can't be focusing on these other teams, right? And it may mean that to watch what's going on and to play this game, you may have to put yourself in a situation where it's like another team may win the race. Focus on beating Max in the Red Bull.
Because Max is so focused is to beat them.
Yeah.
Max doesn't care about Ferrari or Williams or Mercedes.
No.
Max's only goal is, I need to beat the 2 McLarens. That's all. If I do that, I'll win the championship.
Exactly.
Because I know I have the pace to beat the Mercedes and the Ferrari and everybody else. These are the guys I need to focus on.
And it's just like I said, even if it means I finish 3rd and they finish 4th and 5th, I'm okay with that. Yeah. Max is okay.
Yeah, because you're increasing. You're increasing your points over them.
And that's the type of mentality McLaren needs to have. Don't worry about who pitted and what lap time they're doing. Focus on the guy that you're in a championship with. So yesterday
Yeah,
was a big old cock up.
yeah. I just thought about it because when he came out, he wasn't that far ahead of Charles
Hmm.
when he came out. So was it a case of they looked at Charles and thought, yeah, if we don't pit him now, Charles is going to jump us? But I'm thinking, if you had carried on, you probably would have opened up that gap. You pit him back out into traffic where now he's going to
Use
get
time.
delayed, use tires to get past all of that traffic, get delayed, and that in that moment, Max advantage grows because Red Bull literally once they saw where he was going to come back out, they pretty much know, yeah, we've got this race won now.
Yeah,
There's no Max can because he's going to have loose time coming through the traffic.
yeah.
If it was a case of where he pitted and he came back out in clean air, no one in front of him, where he could exploit the pace of the McLaren, then Red Bull would have pitted Max. But that wasn't the case. And lap 14 was way too early in the race to do that either way. So strategically, yeah, they definitely made a mistake. And not only that, you then look at the final safety car, right? Oscar was on hard tires that were something like what 20 laps because he pitted again under the second virtual safety car that came the first virtual safety car
I
that
think it
came
was
out
17 laps old tire he was on.
yeah, so he pitted on I think he pitted under the VSC which came out on lap 29 or 30 or whichever one it came out on, right? And then so that would have been his second stop. So that would have been his second stop for another set of hard tires. So he had no more tires available to him, right? Lando had a fresh set of hard tires. Now, you'd have thought to yourself, okay, who has the best chance of trying to win this race from Max? Obviously, it's going to be Lando.
Yeah.
So once the race started, it was a case of they should have probably got on the horn to Oscar and like once they cleared, I just say the first lap or half a lap, Oscar let Lando through.
Yeah.
Let him through. Let him chase after Max and see because he was going to pass. Lando was going to pass him eventually. Lando was going to pass him because he didn't have the tires and fresh tires and the pace of that McLaren means he was pretty much guaranteed
It wouldn't
P2.
be like you lost a podium. It wouldn't be like you gave up a podium to Lando.
Exactly.
You're going to lose it back.
Exactly. Because you were going to lose it anyway. But he spent 3 laps behind trying to pass Oscar. And within that 3 laps, Max drove off. So you're like, come on, man, guys, what are you doing?
You
And again, hold on, and I think this is what Jacques Villeneuve said in his post race comments. Is like they're scared of pulling the trigger and offending Oscar. Like in that situation, you gave Red Bull a win. You made the mistake already by pitting Oscar too early, and now you're making it easier for them by saying letting the two of them fight for what?
and
For
even
for TV?
and even in that situation, I'm sure Oscar would understand that I was going to lose the
Of
position.
course. But Oscar knew he was going to lose the position.
And
Everybody watching the race knew he was going to lose that position.
and the crazy that Jacques Villeneuve said that. You remember in the spaces what I said? I said Zach Brown is gonna let them race until he let them race out of a championship win.
Exactly.
And you know me, I'm always the one that likes the pure racing. We always have this conversation, right? Hey man,
Hmm.
I like pure racing. But in a situation like this, when you have won, apart from last year, you haven't won the drivers' championship since Lewis Hamilton, right? Don't let them race you out of a driver's title, bro. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying?
Let them beat you. Let them have to work
Because
for it.
at this point, it has to make sense. And in this scenario, it made sense to, as you say, jump on the radio and be like, hey, Oscar, move over
Move
to
out the
the side.
way.
Because you're going to lose a position. It's pointless having Lando race for a position that he's going to gain, even if it took him 3 laps. Max just cantered up the road.
But because by the time Lando got past Oscar, Max was like 5 seconds up the road. And you're like,
That's
that's 3 laps you wasted that you could have just said, move out the way, Oscar. Let go on the radio behind the safety car and say, Oscar, let Lando pass as quickly as possible.
put this way. McLaren displayed a classic case of stepping on your own tail yesterday.
Yep. They gave the me. Yeah, I think they gave Red Bull that win
Um,
because
I was
this
gonna
is
ask
why
you
I
that.
said
It's funny you said it because I was gonna
Mhm.
ask you. One of the first thing I was gonna ask you when we started the pod, when we got to this topic, was did Red Bull win that race or did McLaren basically effed it up?
McLaren messed it up, but that's after Piastri messed it up.
Yeah,
Because
because
Piastri,
I get
that move, Max should have never passed him on the outside. Piastri basically fell into the trap Lando fell into last year at Monza. He thought because he got to the corner first, it was done. He got to the braking zones first, the braking zone of the corner first. It was done. He had the corner,
and as I said,
forgetting who he's racing against.
and
Because if you watch the start, right, George got a better start than
Max,
Max.
yeah,
And he then got the tour from Oscar. Because if you saw the onboard, you could see Oscar, he was looking left, he was looking right, and he was looking where Max was. And what he did was the last time he looked to his left, didn't look back to his right to see where Max was. Because he felt like, okay, I've pulled away from Max now, I have the corner. So when he went into that corner, I think he was surprised to see Max just steam up on the outside of him. So he didn't do well going into that corner. And again, I'm not really the biggest Jack Villeneuve fan because he's a bit wishy-washy at times with his comments. But he was right. He said there was no way Max should have come out of that corner leading the race.
yeah, and not only that, Oscar also focused on the wrong car, right? Because the start that George got, right,
Mhm.
and and this is where my issue comes in, and I'm probably gonna chalk it up to inexperience, right? Because
Mhm.
if there was gonna be a car that should have led that wasn't Oscar, it should have been
Should have
George.
been George. Yeah,
Oscar should have done all he do everything that he can to keep Max, box him in, and let George go up the inside and know that I can catch you. I know I've got a way faster
exactly.
car than yours. So,
Exactly.
and this is my issue, and this is where McLaren got to be careful with their drivers and the strategy that they pull because they're going to have to pick their battles correctly.
Mhm.
Because guess what? Come checkered flag, Abu Dhabi, we might see a Red Bull driver as champion,
We might see it before Abu Dhabi because
right?
we know the battles Red Bull are going to pick. They only have one driver. They don't. Again, this came out and they said it. Their focus is to win the drivers' championship. There's no way they can win the constructors. They're too far behind. And with Max already scoring what 99.9% of the points already, that's beyond them. So their focus is the driver. So we know what their fight is going to be.
Exactly. And
Everything is going to go into beat those two McLarens.
McLaren is going to have to batten down, and there's probably going to come a point in the season where they're going to have to sacrifice a driver,
They should have sacrificed one yesterday.
right? That's it. Because and if they're not thinking that, bro, they have no business racing, bro. Like,
Look, look,
if they're not
and
no,
this.
if they're not going in these meetings and are going through this championship thing, it's gonna become a point where we're gonna have to look at the points and see. Say, for instance, Lando is in the lead, Piastri is in second, but the points difference between Max isn't that great between Piastri if he's leading the championship at said point, and be like, "Hey, Lando, we need this 5. You got to pull over, Bert. You got to pull
Yeah.
over. You got to
It's
let him."
similar to it's similar to Lewis and if you go back to 2018 when Lewis finally when he won in Germany. I believe the next race was Sochi in Russia. And Bottas should have, and if we're being honest, a lot of people don't want to be honest about that. Bottas should have won the Russian Grand Prix in 2008. No, it was no,
2018. You mean?
2018. So no, it was after Singapore. So they had Russia, right? And it was close in the championship between Lewis and Seb. Bottas should have won that race, if we're being honest. But Mercedes told Bottas, yo, we
Pull over.
need those. And at that point, Lewis was I believe Lewis had taken the lead in the championship, but it wasn't a big points gap.
Yeah, we
So
need.
they pretty much said to Bottas, "Yo, we need those extra points," because Lewis was in second, and I believe Seb was in third at the time. So the points gain difference would have been what? Second gets 18, third gets 15. So it would have been 3 points. So they said to Bottas, "Yo, move out the way, let Lewis through." Lewis won the race. Lewis, it was a net gain of what? 7 points. So rather than gaining 3 points over Seb, he gained 10 points because they told Bottas. And at that point, Bottas wasn't really in the championship, but the same logic will apply to McLaren. That if it gets to a stage in the season where whoever is leading the championship, if that person is in front of you, you're going to have to tell them to move over, because why would you want to take points off the guy that's more likely going to win in the championship?
Yeah, Zach
When the
Brown.
guy that you're chasing, when the guy that's chasing you is literally right behind him, you want to build a gap to him. You want to get the most points you can get. So if you see a situation where you can get from gaining 3 points to gaining 10, you're gonna have to take it.
Yep.
Gaining an extra 7 to make it 10, you're gonna have to tell somebody move over. But I remember last year someone was saying to me that Oscar's contract basically says he's not a number 2 driver or whatever it is. And I'm thinking, why would Red Bull why would McLaren even sign such a contract, etc. But even in even yeah, I
Why would they sign what type of contract?
saying Oscar is not a number 2 driver, like, okay. And again, it probably goes back to the Weber thing, because Weber So
Um,
Weber is his manager, but I'm kind of going off track here. But the point is,
let's,
um,
let's keep it a buck. No one really knows what these guys' contracts are.
yeah, yeah. But at some point, McLaren is going, like you said, at some point they're going to get to a stage where they're going to have to make a decision, and somebody's going to have to end up losing
Someone
the
is gonna have to
championship
play
anyway.
bridesmaid at some point of the season.
Yeah,
Because what's gonna happen if not? They're gonna take points off each other, and a Red Bull is gonna win the championship.
it's going to end up
That just
like
makes no sense.
similar to 2007. That's what's going to end up like, possibly end up like. You have the fastest car right now, and it's very likely come the end of the year, neither your driver wins the championship, and then you're going to be like, what happened? And then you're going to be looking at weekends like this, like dumb decisions like that cost you the championship.
And yeah, so message
So
to Zach Brown: don't let them race yourself out of a drivers' championship this year, bro.
exactly.
Y'all need to get it right. Yeah, we love racing as fans, but we're also not stupid, right? There's a lot at stake when it comes down to racing, especially F1 racing. So don't let them race yourself out of a driver's title. That's all I'm gonna say on that.
McLaren made a lot of mistakes yesterday. First one that really messed them up was Oscar. Should have never lost that position, because he went into that corner far enough ahead of Max. That should have never happened. Then two, that early pit stop for him, you couldn't see the logic behind it, because you're talking about he would have needed to do, was it 50, basically 59 laps on the hard tires. And again, it's on the softer side of the compound, so we don't know if it would have gone the distance. And Max did 20 odd laps on the medium. So why did you pit him?
Yeah, it didn't make any
And
sense.
then to compound it, you have the guy who on brand new tires against the guy who's on 20 lap old tires fighting for 3 laps, whilst the guy you want to try and win the race from drives off into the distance. Like, come on. Sometimes I get the idea about wanting them to fight, but sometimes you have to use common sense and like,
And
yeah,
so we could move on from
throw
this,
that out the window.
right? Huh? So we could just to close out this topic. It's like what we said, right? McLaren
Mm.
is like playing poker, right? What they did yesterday was take their whole hand and turn it over and show it to Red Bull.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Because once you did that, you told Red Bull, yeah, we're two stopping from here.
Yeah, because
Now
that's
Red
what it
Bull.
looked like
Yeah,
they were going to do with Oscar. It was going
yeah.
to,
From
and go
so
on.
even the thing is, even if Red Bull was planning to two stop Max, once they saw that, that went through the window.
Yeah, but the thing is,
Look,
Red Bull were
look,
never
look,
planning on
look,
two
look.
stopping Max.
Now
It was
understand,
never an option.
even if that was a thing,
Hmm.
what McLaren did yesterday was show their hand, and once they saw that, hey, that's a two stop. Now we ain't, hey, we just gonna run off in the distance. We're gonna one stop,
Hmm.
right? So McLaren kind of they flunked that
Yeah,
exam yesterday. They flunked that one.
they made it easier for Max than
There's
they
no
should have.
logical reason even Zach Brown or their strategists could come and tell fans as to why they made that decision. Because there's none. We're not stupid,
Yeah, they
right?
made it easier for than it needed to be for Max. So yeah, they
Let's
have to
talk
eat that
about
one.
so that's it on McLaren and their shenanigans. Yeah, let's go over to the red cars. Qualified terribly, terribly,
The worst qualifying session of the year so far, 11th and 12th.
but
That's
raced
tough.
well.
Yeah, yeah, they had a good recovery, aided by the VSC and the safety car, but it's the same for everybody.
Yeah,
It's the VS. It's not like the VSC or safety car came up for them specifically, but Charles had a good start. Both Lewis and Charles had a good start, but Lewis had to check up because Charles moved over on him, and I think that checking up, basically meant that he couldn't gain any more positions. He lost a position to Antonelli, so
yeah,
he dropped from 12th down to 13th. But Charles made some move on as well. Where did he got up to? He got up to ninth. If I'm not, yeah, he got up to the highest he got to was ninth. So he passed. Was it Hajar? Just let me just check, and I'll tell you. I'm trying to remember who he passed. He passed Gasly. I know he passed Gasly because he did put up a nice move on Gasly. Gasly tried to defend that position when, let's be honest, he pretty much knew that position was gone. So yeah, so he jumped Antonelli, um, and then he passed Hajar, and then then he passed Gasly,
yeah,
moving up to ninth, and he was pretty much there until his early stop. Lewis again lost that position, and he was pretty much stuck in a DRS train for, oh god, that was a long time. And that's the problem with Imola. Once you get stuck in a DRS train, that's pretty much it. That's where
yeah.
you're gonna be for a lengthy period of time. And it's not like the Mercedes was a slouch. What I mean? It was relatively quick, and it had good straight line speed. So that was pretty much the start where their race kind of pretty much plateaued out until the call for. Well, I didn't even see when Charles pit, because I believe he was the first person to pit at the end of lap 9, and still trying to figure out why they pit him so early. Because if you pitted him on lap 9, that means he would have needed to do 54 laps on a set of hard tires. So you're pretty much signaling, yeah, this is going to be a two-stop race for him. And my concern with that is Imola has one of the longest pit lanes, right? Which means the pit time lasts with pretty much like 30 seconds,
30 seconds run about here. Yeah,
run about 30 seconds. So you don't want to do a two-stop, even though the Pirelli strategy thing said if you go medium, you can do medium for 12 laps, then you do two stops on the hard. You change from medium to hard, then second stop hard. But Charles pitted much earlier than the recommended amount of laps.
yeah.
So that means he was definitely going to two stop, because there's no way he would have been able to do the whole entire race on that and keep pace, because it's very likely he would have been hanging on for dear life at the end.
Hmm.
So you know, that was his race. And he was a bit annoyed because he felt like, the safety car ruined the VSC, and the safety car ruined, because when the VSC came out, it gave Lewis an opportunity to pit. And, it's pit. Hold on a second, my phone just keep buzzing. To pit and come back out in front of him, right?
Yeah,
So, um, Yeah, what was I saying? Sorry, I got kind of distracted.
You're
So
talking about
yeah,
Charles.
yeah. So that allowed Lewis to pit and come back out in front of him, and hold his position. Charles fell down to, I believe, what he he pitted again because he pitted also under the VSC, and he lost two positions to Stroll and Alonso. Right, Lewis. I don't even know what to say about their race, to be honest, because it was pretty much, I don't even know what to say. It, it was a bad weekend for Ferrari. Whilst the recovery to fourth and sixth
Yeah.
looked good on a Saturday, on the Sunday, it's still a. I felt it was a bad weekend because you expected more from them,
Hmm.
and to go out in Q2 like the way they did again, it was a repeat of Miami. They were quicker on a used set of tires than they were on a brand new set, and it seems to be this year they have a car that in race trim it's relatively good, but in qualifying it's absolutely terrible. And that's a problem that they're going to have to fix because you're putting yourself on the back foot on going into a Sunday where you have to basically you're recovering rather than trying to start near the front and move forward, move in that direction. So yeah, I I don't know. I don't know. The whole Ferrari thing to me just, you know where I stand with that whole
So,
thing.
just to quote, after the race, Lewis did say, he said, and I quote, I did think we would make an improvement this weekend. So, with something I've fixed, and I think there's more to come. The setup
Repeat
was really,
again.
the car felt really mega, and the team did a fantastic job on strategy and pit stops. Um,
Hmm.
but basically, he's saying that he said I, so it seems like he's saying that he figured out he fixed something in the car, and there's more to come.
Hmm. Well, I mean, did he not say that in where did he say that? Was it China? Did he not say the same thing in China? About there
After
was
the
the identity,
Monaco
yeah, after,
Grand Prix,
yeah, where they identified an issue, and it was what's causing the deficit, and once that gets fixed, etc., etc., he should be fine. But then, since then his pace has been pretty much nowhere.
mm,
But if you look at if you look at Miami and this weekend, he was much closer to Charles than in the previous three races.
yeah.
Three races in, yeah. So he was much closer to Charles in terms of performance. So, but they still have a lot of work to do on that car.
They do.
I think it's fundamentally flawed,
Yeah.
right? And so they just have to do their best. But in saying that, they made the right calls at the right time, which you have to give them credit for because again they don't normally do that. And Lewis, he made up positions because he had to pass. Where was he? He had to pass the likes of. He was in seventh. He was in seventh when the one, two, three, four, five. Yeah, he was in seventh when the safety car came in, and he had to pass Russell, Albon, and Charles, and move up into fourth. And this is where we had a discussion yesterday about the safety car, right? And I think the safety car somewhat robbed him of an opportunity to actually be on the podium, because I think if the safety car had come in maybe 3 laps earlier, because I think it took from lap 46 to lap 53, so that's 7 laps. It took 7 laps to clear what's his name, Antonelli, breaking down. And I felt like if they could have cleared that car within 3 laps, Lewis probably would have been on the podium,
So,
because I think he finished about second and a half behind Oscar.
so just to play devil's advocate, right? I guess we could also say the same that if it wasn't for the first VSC, they wouldn't have been in contention. The same safety
For
car
what?
that cost them the podium,
Hmm.
remember, was in the DRS train. So, it was the VSC and the safety car who brought them back into contention. So it's like, you
Yeah,
know,
because Lewis' race was tracking to finish. Because if the race hadn't, that safety car hadn't come out, he was tracking to finish fourth anyway.
mhm.
Because he was behind Albon. He was behind Albon in fifth, and he was catching Albon at a relatively decent pace because he was told by his engineer that he should catch Albon with 5 laps remaining. So
Yeah.
he was basically tracking to finish fourth anyway. So even and that was before the final safety car, and even with the VSC only lasted what, I think 2 laps.
Which is why
Even then,
I said it. So his rightful position was fourth, right? The if the
yeah.
safety car cleared, it would have been like
I don't know if it would have. I don't know if
check
his
and balance.
rightful position would if you remove the verse VSC. If the race had went as planned with no VSC or safety car, I think he would have probably finished in the top five.
Yeah.
Because I think because he was running so long, he would have then come out on the medium tires, which would have been a much better tires. Because when he pitted under the VSC, the safety car, at first he didn't really want to pit because he said, he didn't want to lose any positions. But Ricky said, look, you'd only lose like 3 positions, but you'd be on brand fresher tires compared to those who's going to jump you because they didn't have any tires left. George didn't have any tires left. Who was it? George didn't have any tires left, and Albon, I believe, Albon was on new tires actually, but he should have had the pace to jump Albon.
Yeah.
So yeah, so they made the right calls at the right time, and they got the results that the performance showed this weekend. I think they were probably quicker than the what's that? The Mercedes this weekend in race trim, obviously not in qualifying. I don't know what happened to the Mercedes. They were just pretty much slow. George was complaining about instability at the rear. He thinks something like a track rod was broken or something of the sort.
Yeah.
And you know, Kimi had his issues. I mean, Kimi raced well for the first 14 laps prior to the VSC, kept Lewis behind him, and he looked comfortable doing it as well. But once he pitted for some reason, it seemed like his tires went off. He couldn't manage his tires, and that was pretty much that for him before the retirement. But going back to Ferrari, on Lewis's side, they did everything that they needed to do right. On with Charles, there was some indecisiveness with him and his team because he was asking them when they said to pit, and he was like, "What tires do I have?" And they say, "Yeah." He went, "Do we have any new softs?" And they're like, "Yeah." And he's like, "Oh, I want the soft." And they're like, "Well, we don't think the soft can go to the end because at that point in time there was only 17 laps." And you, I think if they'd known how long the safety car was going to be out, then obviously they would have put him on the soft tires. But no one was supposed to know they would have spent 7 laps again. I think that thing was inefficient. The marshals in cleaning the vehicle in Antonelli's car was very inefficient. He shouldn't have taken them 7 laps. And when they told Charles to box, he didn't. He changed his mind because he saw Lewis coming in, and he went, "Oh, I don't want to double stack because I'd lose a lot of time and positions." And I'm thinking, well, but you come back out on a brand new set of soft tires, which would have given you an advantage over those who would have jumped you. So by making that decision to not pit, it pretty much cost him, I think, um, the opportunity to probably even finish ahead of Lewis or even fifth, for that matter, because he had to give the position back for the whole incident with Albon, which I think he did force him off track. So there was no arguing in saying, why when they told him to give the position, why he needed to. It was either that or you get a 5-second penalty. So either way, might as well just give it up. They probably should have told him to give it up much earlier, but Then again, Albon would have driven away from him. He was even asking him to tell Lewis to stay in DRS, to give him DRS. And I'm thinking, Lewis is on brand new tires, mate. That means Lewis would have to be driving so slow to give you DRS. And when you consider that the carrot in front of him dangling was Oscar on 20 lap all hard tires, why would you want him to do that in the first place? You're taking an opportunity away from him from finishing on the podium.
I
So,
guess he wouldn't have
no.
known that Lewis was that close to Oscar, probably. That's the why.
Well, he should have known because it was a safety car.
Mm.
Remember, everybody was bunched up on the safety car. So, and Lewis only needed to pass. Who did Lewis pass when the safety car? He only needed to pass. No, he had to pass Albon. Well, he had to pass all three of them.
Yeah.
And the move that with Charles and Albon pretty much kind of like let Lewis through, and that was it. Lewis drove a good race. I think he managed his race well. The communication between him and Ricky was decisive. It was, there was no, yeah, but yeah, So when he was having his conversation with Ricky about pitting under the safety car, he was like, "How many positions am I going to lose?" And Ricky said, like, I think he said something like 2, but you would be on brand new
Sounds
tires.
like they're coming in sync.
Hmm?
Sounds like they're sinking. No.
Yeah, that relationship is eventually it's gonna come good because see, Lewis did pit, because when Lewis pitted, Lewis was ahead of Charles, Hajar, Russell, and Sainz. And when he pitted, he just lost the 2 positions,
Yeah. So
which he basically quick. No, he didn't. No, Albon was already in front of him, so he didn't really lose a position to Albon. So because he came back out behind Albon, Charles, Albon, and Russell, but Albon was already in front of him anyway before, so
yeah.
he didn't really lose a position to him. But he just lost the 2 to Charles and George, which he quickly dispatched George.
Yeah. So let me
But
ask you this: Ferrari and how do you Ferrari? How do you rate them on strategy this weekend?
like I said, on Lewis's side of the garage, they called the strategies right. They made the right decisions at the right time. The on Charles's side, maybe there needed to be a bit more decisive and clear. When they told Charles to box, they should have insisted that he box, but he made the decision not to, and then said, "Okay, I can't do it again." Which they basically said, "Well, you can't do it again," because he would have lost more than the two whatever amount of positions he was going to lose if he had actually kind of like what's that we call it again, double stack. Because all he had to do was when Lewis entered the pit lane, he didn't have to go as hard. He just kind of like needed to drop back maybe 1 or 2 seconds and give himself more of a gap. The pit stop was only going to be about 2.5 seconds. So if he gave himself maybe a 4 second, 5 second gap to Lewis, he probably wouldn't have lost any time. But, it is what it is.
Well,
But
I guess I'm just
overall, the weekend for them, I think if you're going to grade them the weekend, you probably get them a B minus. To be
basically
honest,
they didn't stink up the place this weekend on strategy. Yeah,
yeah,
that's what it comes down
yeah,
to. Usually
you can say
Ferrari
that.
stink up the place.
Yeah, they didn't do a Miami.
Yeah, they
Put it that
showed
way.
improvement on
Yeah,
strategy. All right, and so
they
as
didn't
we're
do.
about to wrap, so championship prediction.
Okay, but before we do that, we probably just need to give a honorable mention to the Williams. You know what I mean? Again, Alex Albon doing his thing. He was comfortably running in the top 5. Look,
Yeah,
didn't look out of place. At one point, he was in a podium position, but we all know that was never going to happen. Oscar caught him, pass him. So they finish in the points again. They finish where they finish. The double points finish. Albon finished. What's that? 5th.
fifth.
Sainz finished. What's that? 6th. Sainz finished 8th. So they've been somewhat of a surprise in the last two races, especially in qualifying. They've looked really, really quick. And Ferrari needs to address that as well because they've all qualified them in the last two races. And I don't think that should be happening to Ferrari. But it's also a testament to what James Vowles has managed to do within that team to get them to turn around. The turnaround is actually brilliant because what? Albon is on 40 points and Sainz is on 11. I think this is the best points all they've had, I think, going back to the pre ground effects era, if I'm not mistaken. I could be wrong, but I'd have to double check. I didn't really check that. But shout out to Williams. They're quietly doing their thing. I think right now, if you're ranking the cars in terms of performance, it's them. It's McLaren, Red Bull, McLaren, Red Bull, Mercedes, Ferrari, and I think I'd put Williams as the fifth fastest car right now on pure pace. I think they're
Yeah, they
clearly
They
much,
are.
huh?
They're better than they
Yeah,
are. They are.
they're clearly a better car than the
V carb.
V Carb, the Aston again, who I think are an absolute disappointment. You can't, they brought a raft of upgrades this weekend, and okay, Alonso's screaming on the radio, he's the effing unluckiest guy in the world. I don't think that's the case. I think you reap what you sow. This is all karma coming back to him. But you'd think you're not seeing any progress from Aston Martin.
Can you not do a podcast without showing your disdain for Alonso, bro?
No, it's not possible. That's like me. That's not me. Like me not breathing.
Right. And so, yeah.
It's not possible.
What
Yeah.
championship prediction? Sound you put it here, so it seems like you're thinking about it.
Like who you think is going to win the championship?
Honestly, I think. Who do I think is going to win the championship? All right, then. There's caveat. It's not a straight up answer, to be honest. If McLaren get their act together and not do dumb stuff like they did yesterday, I'm going with Oscar.
Well, the question, okay, so yeah, because it's more drivers than constructors. Because I think we're pretty much in agreement they're going to win the constructors championship.
Yeah, I'm talking about the driver.
I think they're going to.
To be honest, let's be honest. No fan care about constructors championship. Fans care about drivers championship.
Yeah,
the team cares about constructors and sponsors and the brand itself. Yeah, fans care about drivers.
Yeah,
right. Yeah.
You know what?
Yeah.
I'm going to say Lando. And the only reason why I'm saying Lando because you guys are coming down on him so hard, and I think it is it justified.
Oh, so you're going to say Lando just because of that? Are you really saying Lando because you think he can? Or are you just saying it because we're just harder than him?
I think he can. I've always maintained that I think he can win the championship because he has the car. He has the car and he has the talent to win the championship. He just needs to get his.
Why I say there's caveat to that is because my champion depends on a lot of things. And like I just mentioned, if McLaren get their act together and not do shit, crazy stuff like they did yesterday, I'm going with Oscar. If they keep doing stuff like that, I'm going with Max. So it's a tricky one for me.
So basically, you're hedging your bet, but you can't hedge your bet. You have to pick one. You can't hedge your bet.
All right, I'm gonna go with Oscar.
That's it. You can't.
No, I'm going with Oscar, and I'm also putting trust in McLaren to figure it out, to not do stuff like this. So I'm going with Oscar.
No, you just need to pick one because we don't want to hedge in no bet. We just need. I'm going Lando. You saying Oscar?
I'm going to Oscar, but I wouldn't be surprised if Max is champion. But I'm going to Oscar.
Of course, we're not going to be surprised because again, Max is Max Verstappen. I mean,
not only that, I don't think it's just going to be because Max is Max. It's gonna if Max wins the championship, it means that McLaren effed up several times this season.
Okay, then quarter
Max is not
five.
going to. Max is not going to beat the McLaren. The both drivers in McLaren just off beating Max. McLaren is going to
True.
have to screw that up.
They're gonna have to help him in some ways, and like they
Exactly.
did show signs of that yesterday.
Yeah. So
Fair.
that's what I'm looking
I'm
at.
going. I'm going Lando. I know people are gonna stone me with
Yeah. I'm
rotten fruit and whatever, but I'm gonna go with Lando. I don't know. I just have this feeling that he's gonna figure it out, and once he figures it out, he's just
mhm.
gonna
There's
yeah.
a
So
quarter of the season already passed. So yeah, he
yeah,
needs to
but
figure it
there's
out.
still 3 quarters left. That's still more than a half. So you know,
As you say,
yeah.
you have to go off what you see, and I'm seeing a quarter of the season pass, and he's still having the same issue. So let's see. Lost the rate the race.
Rate the race. What did we have as the ranking again?
Um,
Dude, you need to write these down because I don't remember. But if I'm rating the race, oh god,
does it get on your podium so far to 7 races?
no, no, it's never that's
Definitely
never
not.
gonna that's definitely not making the podium because what we have for the podium, if I'm not mistaken, we have uh Saudi Arabia, I believe was top. It was Saudi Arabia, Bahrain, and Miami on the podium. So if I'm going to rank it, it's definitely better than Japan. It was a better race than Japan. Let's be honest. By far, Japan is the worst race we've had out of the 7 so far. So I think if I'm going to rate this race, I'll probably give it a 6 out of 10,
6
but
out
no
of
more
10,
than that.
and
Yeah,
it
but
does
no more
not
than
make the
that.
podium.
No.
Yeah. Where do I go with this race? Doesn't make the podium for me either.
Mm.
I'll give it probably a 5. Um, uh, uh initially because I tweeted that this thing is boring. I was watching. I'm like, man, this is boring.
Hmm.
And then obviously the VSC and the safety car. Yeah, so I'll give it a 5. It wasn't. It's not a race that I'm going to. Probably this is the last time I ever speak about this race. It's not something. Honestly, it's not a race that I'm going to be. You remember this? No, it's not one of them ones. Right. So
No, it's not. It's not. It's not memorable because I don't think there's anything that really happened in it that you know would make it
yeah.
memorable.
Apart from the pass that Max pull on Piastri,
Yeah,
that's probably going to that you're probably going to see that clip more than you actually. You're going to have to. If you see that clip again, you're going to be like, what? Which race was that again?
yeah. So it
Yeah.
wasn't. It wasn't earth shattering or anything like
Yeah.
that. But yeah.
All right. Well,
But before we close, just let's do a quick preview of the next race upcoming, which is the Monaco Grand Prix, which is arguably the most boring race in F1's history. How you see how you see that plays out? What's your predictions? Who you think's gonna win going into that race? Because I already think the Ferrari are gonna be in trouble in that race this weekend.
Monaco. To be honest, it, I'm just going to go with McLaren just because they've got the best car. Oh, it's going to go. The thing is with Monaco, if you was to say Andre, you can hibernate and sleep out the whole race weekend. Which one would it be? It would be
Definitely be
Monaco.
Monaco. Yeah,
I
because
I
Monaco.
personally don't like the race. I just watch it because I love F1. I'm not
Hmm.
watching the Monaco Grand Prix just because I don't even think it should be on the calendar. But hey, it's a
Yeah,
rich guy's playground, so who am I,
yeah,
right?
because
I don't
the
like
race basically comes down to Saturday qualifying.
yeah,
Wherever you qualify on Saturday, that's pretty much where you're gonna finish. Because
yeah,
there's little to no, there's no overtaking, and is what people are going to do is to prevent undercut or whatever. They're just going to drive slow as hell until they're ready to do a pit stop. Then they up the pace. So it's just that we pretty much know how the pattern of that race. So it's going to come down to qualifying. So, and like I said, I don't trust. We pretty much know the Ferrari is not really that great. It's not a good car. It lacks balance, it lacks grip, it lacks traction, it hits
Braking stability,
corners,
type.
it's yeah, it's rotation, it's slow and everything. And around Monaco, you don't want that because you have to race as close as hell to the barriers to get lap time. And
And and
in
and,
some
and
ways, Monaco is more about drivers than it is somewhat car, but you still need a good car around here. And I think we could we could potentially
more
be
about
in for a
it's more
surprise.
about a driver who can qualify, who could get a qualifying lap around here out of a decent enough car.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Because the
Has
thing is, you might go to Monaco and the fastest car is not on pole.
Yeah, because because the driver. I mean, yeah, we've seen that. We've
Yeah,
seen
because
that with
the driver
with the
for the
Mercedes.
fastest car may not have the kahunas.
Not only that,
To,
maybe the car just doesn't work on that day.
right.
We saw it
And
with
sometimes even it
Mercedes.
works, but the close calls in Monaco, it's just the guy who can hang it out, right? You might
Yeah,
find the fastest car is not on there. But as I
yeah, and
said,
you'd need a good car for you to hang it out like that. You have to trust the car for you to
yeah,
really hang it out. So I
I,
think I think we might be in for a surprise this weekend, and I'm going to throw a name in the hat:
yeah, throw it in.
George Russell.
George Russell. I'm not mad at that.
Yeah.
I'm not
I
mad at
think George
that.
could
Take off
surprise
against
because
her.
his qualifying has been pretty, with the exception of Japan, his qualifying this year has been pretty epic,
Amen.
pretty
I'm mad at that.
really,
Take
really good.
charge. And then Kimmy
Yeah.
showed useful exuberance.
I mean, if King, no, I mean, again, yeah. Let's see how Kimmy does because he's improving. I think pace wise, he has pace. His issue is he needs to understand how to manage his ties. And I think once, and again, that will come with experience. It's only his seventh race in the sport, but
Yeah.
I think this weekend George Russell could spring a surprise on everybody, and I I fear for the Ferraris. I fear for the
Hey
Ferraris.
man, you know what I want
Hmm.
for this weekend to come and go. That's what I want. And I'm just being honest. I'm not even holding my punches. If there's if you put the calendar in front of me and say make a decision, the race that you would erase, it would be the
Hmm.
Monaco Grand Prix,
Yeah,
right? Because
definitely.
let's be honest. The Monaco Grand Prix is just where rich people go to play for the weekend.
Yeah,
It's nothing about racing,
it's yeah, it's who
right?
has the biggest yacht.
Yeah, it's
It's
so for me.
let's who was the biggest super yacht. That's
Yeah,
what
so
it
for me,
is.
watching the Monaco Grand Prix is just because I'll just watch it, but I'm not looking. Hey, it's the Monaco Grand Prix. I honestly do not care.
Yeah, we're gonna be in for 70 plus laps of boredom, just
Yeah,
processional
so
racing.
yeah,
And I think Croft and Brundle were back this weekend because they weren't in commentary this weekend. And I tell you what, it's kind of refreshing to have hearing two different people. I like Anthony Davidson in commentary because he's far more as a driver. He explains things somewhat
and
better
it's
than
current.
Brundle.
The guy's not a
Yeah,
dinosaur. When was the last time Brunda drove come on, like
yeah, yeah.
Anthony
So it's
Davidson is current, and he's driven a lot of he's driven endurance cars. So
mhm.
if I'm gonna
I can't
listen to
remember.
someone,
Yeah,
if I'm gonna listen to a current commentator in the F1, that's in F1, right?
it'd be
Going to
Ant
be him. It's going to be
because
him.
he explains,
It's going to be him. It's going to be Button, right? If
and Nico
Rosberg comes
Rosberg.
back around, right?
Hmm.
And as bad as he didn't last long, even Julian Palmer, I don't want to hear nothing from Martin Brundle. Bro, you drove the
Yeah,
last F1 car you drove. It was a manual transmission. I don't want to hear from you.
no, I don't think it was manual. It was
No,
manual.
I'm just
It
taking
was,
liberties.
yeah,
I'm
yeah,
just saying that, bro. I don't want to hear from you with a gated gearbox F1 car, bro. Like,
yeah.
yeah,
I
yeah.
think it was refreshing hearing a different commentary. And like I said, with Ant, what I like with Ant is because he has more, because I think he's still part of the Mercedes test team. So he simulator work for Mercedes. So he's more current and he offers more, he explains things better. Put it that way. So you understand car balance, whatever. When your driver says this, he can actually explain it to the us, the listeners, far better than and they make less mistakes than Crofty and all that. So yeah, but yeah, Monaco Grand Prix this weekend. It's going to be a bore fest. I fear for the Ferraris, genuinely do, because that's just a turbo car in every aspect of it, especially in qualifying. But my surprise is going to be George Russell wins the Monaco Grand Prix.
That's it. It's a wrap for this edition of the Grand Prix Project podcast. You want to say the name?
Nah, your turn, because I said at the beginning. I said at the beginning.
Okay.
Your turn. Try.
I'm not even gonna try. This has been the
Emilia Romagna Grand Prix.
This has been the review of the first of the 2 Italian Grand Prix for 2025.
The Emilia Romagna Grand Prix.
Okay, there you go. And once again, thank you for listening to the Grand Prix Project. Please go follow us on X. We're the GP Project Pod. We're on YouTube, the Grand Prix Project Podcast. Instagram, the Grand Prix Project Podcast. And we also have the website, which is www.thegrandprixproject.com. We're on Spotify. We're on Apple Podcasts. We're everywhere that you could consume podcasts. We're there. So please go follow, like, leave your comments. Tell us how biased we are. Tell us how you like us. Tell us how you dislike us.
And tell me to stop. And tell me to lay off Alonso.
Yeah. So,
never going to happen.
So, yeah, it's a wrap for this episode of the Grand Prix Project podcast. Peace out. See y'all next time.
Everyone.